I'm Bob at I Like to Make Stuff. Today we're going to replace an old stair rail and make a custom one from scratch. Today we are at Anthony's house. They've been doing a whole bunch of renovation on this house, and we've got a project that we're going to help them out with. What are we going to be doing?
We're going to be replacing this railing here for a couple of reasons. It's a safety issue and it's outdated looking. So the first thing is it's wobbly. Secondly, these balusters are just too far apart for the safety of our own children. So we're going to solve those two problems and we're going to make it look pretty.
He's been working on a model in Fusion, so we're going to go check that out and we'll figure out what the plan is.
So I've been brushing up on my Fusion 360 skills to help me model this in place so I can make sure everything is to the right size. So we started off with an all metal design here, which I like the look of. It was inspired by those cable railings with a few minor changes, but we went through several iterations and kind of updated it so we can make the design a little more accessible. And honestly, I really like the look we've got going here. I think it's a lot more unique. So we've got hardwood posts and columns for all of the main support pieces. And then we've got steel bars going across in this diagonal pattern to give it kind of a unique look. And to finish everything off, we put some cherry on top.
We've got the majority of the lumber cut down for this, except for that final cherry railing. We'll get to that down the road. But I wanted to point out that this is all oak. These 4x4s are laminated 1xs put together. So this is not like a super nice piece of wood. The oak is nice, but it's not solid, which is good because we're gonna end up painting this black in the end. But I wanted to point that out because this came from a home center. So you can mill this down if you want to have an oak or hardwood 4x4, but we decided to buy it, and having it laminated was a cheaper way to do that. Now we're gonna cut some slots into these so that the bottom pieces can fit into this about 1/2 inch. So we're gonna head over to the table saw and cut a dado on both sides of this to accept those pieces. All right, we're gonna cut a big, wide dado in this piece. And I wanted to point out kind of a safety issue. We're gonna use this miter sled to push this piece of wood through the blade, and we wanna make sure that our dado is from about here to here. We're gonna measure that out, but we're gonna need to reference this bottom section off of the fence. And if you're pushing a piece of wood over here, you don't want this end to be touching the fence, because imagine I was like this and I started pushing it through the blade and it bound right here. This piece of wood, when it hits the blade, is gonna try to do that. That's when you get kickback. It's really dangerous. It will mess up your saw. It will throw this piece of wood at your face or cut your hand off. It's bad. So the way around that is to use a kind of sacrificial piece of wood here behind the blade as our actual measurement. So we're gonna be measuring off this surface, not off this. We'll line up our piece of wood, and then as we push it forward, that piece that's clamped down will fall behind it. And by the time we get to the blade, there's nothing over here. It's not gonna drag. We have complete control over the piece of wood over here. It's a big safety thing. Make sure you do it. That's why I'm doing it. Now that we've got all these dados cut, there's one more little thing we got to figure out here. We have 2 dados on these sides, and this is in the corner post. And so the pieces are going to come in like that, but physics tells us that those can't actually fit together without one of these being notched. So we're going to do some really simple notching to knock off this corner so that it fits in there over top of that piece. Then, after that, we're going to be able to do a dry fit of this entire thing. The top is going to require some dowels to go in through here and carry into the top stringer. So we're going to get those drilled out, lined up, and then we'll be able to put the entire wooden frame together and see it before we add any glue. I've drilled the holes in the top of all these pieces, and they are halfway down the adjoining piece. I need to line up these holes on the ones that are going to be joining into them. And I'm going to do that with some dowel centers, but before I show you that, I wanted to point this out. We printed out a picture of the entire thing, and we're going to start labeling these different pieces because honestly right now they all kind of look the same, and we want to make sure that we get all the holes in the right locations, and for every one of these joints we want to make sure that this piece and that piece that are joining together are going to end up together. Now, as far as the dowel centers, we've got these little metal pieces and they have a point on them. They fit right down into these holes. Once you get them all the way down in there, then you can line up your pieces and then you push them together. I want to point out that I'm using a hand drill for this, and so there is some margin for error in there and all these different ways that you could do it. But I've found in the past that even by using a hand drill, you still have enough accuracy and the dowel's not really that long and it works out just fine. If you have a drill press that can hold something super tall, go for it. It only took a few minutes to get all of these holes drilled, to get all the pieces lined up, and it actually worked out really, really nicely. They're very, very smooth between the connections of the pieces. So now that we've got all these ready, we're going to go ahead and assemble this entire thing without glue. We're going to make sure it fits, take it apart, take it to Anthony's house, make sure it fits in the actual space, and then once we come back, we're going to figure out how to put all these millions and millions and millions of steel bars inside this thing. We've got the dry fit together and it looks fantastic. I'm really happy with the fit. All the pieces are correct. So now Anthony's going to take it apart, take it to his house and make sure that it actually fits in the space. And then we're going to have the big challenge. We have to put in 45-degree holes every few inches all along the inside of all four sides of each one of these three sections. We've got a new tool we've never used before that we're going to try to make that happen. So once we verify that this fits, then we'll jump into that part. Another one of the awesome things about this whole railing being made in Fusion is that we can use it for measurements. That's a big deal because we have a whole bunch of holes to drill for each one of these spindle pieces. These are metal rods that are going to fit in there, and so we have to make sure that the center point is equidistant between every single one of these and that they are running at 45 degrees. So I'm going to lay these out on the pieces of wood, and I've got the measurements from the first hole to the inside edge, and I'm going to use that as a starting point. Then I'll be making marks at the center point of every single one of these. We'll go all the way around each one of these sections and then go back and drill a whole bunch of holes. I've got combination square here, so I'm drawing a center line all the way down. Then I'm going to find the distance of the first hole from this outside edge, and then from there, I'm just doing every 4 inches. I'll draw another dot where that hole needs to be drilled. Now that we've got this line of holes along the bottom, we need to make the matching 45-degree holes on the upright. And so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the distance from that outside wall for the first hole, and we're going to put that on this upright, measure the same distance, mark that, and then just go 4 inches from there. I've got the marks laid out on 2 of these pieces, and what I need to do is transfer those to the other 2 pieces at 45 degrees. Now, you could just do that with math. I could take measurements for all the individual pieces, but the measurements don't really matter. I need it to be visually correct and physically correct. So I'm just going to use combination square, and I'm going to hold it up like this. That gets it to a 45-degree angle, but I need to reach all the way over there. So I'm going to use this long level and just make sure that these faces right here are touching and that this face right here is touching the wood, and theoretically that should translate to a perfect 45-degree angle over there. So I'm just going to line the outside of this up with my mark, make a mark over there, and it should work out. I'm laying out all of these marks as the center of the rods, and I'm doing that on this top surface even though they're actually going to be drilled in here. Once I've got them on this top surface and they're all correct, then I'm just using a combination square to move that mark down so that it intersects the center line of this piece of wood. Now that I've got all of these marked, I need to drill the holes at a 45-degree angle. And to do that, we're going to use this portable drill guide from Rockler. This thing's super cool. You can set the angle, lock it in. You can even put depth stops, which I've already got set because I've done some tests with this. And basically, you can have a drill press and you can set different angles if you want to. So in this case, I've already got some blocks on here, screwed on, that are the right width for this piece of wood, so that this center line of where the drill bit's going to go is centered. So I'm just going to take it, line up the brad point bit of my drill bit with the intersection of where my mark is. Then I'll just hold the jig in place and drill a hole. This thing is super handy, and this may be kind of a weird situation, maybe not a common situation, but if you didn't have a drill press, this would be a really good compact solution to be able to do a lot of the same work that you would do with a full-size machine. All right, now we've got all these holes drilled. We need 18 pieces of round stock to go between these two pieces and those two pieces to connect them together. We've already got the bar, we just need to cut it down to length and then dry fit all this together before we start gluing any of these pieces. So the way I've figured out to do this is to measure in between these center points and then add an inch. And that's because I was careful about the depth stop for each one of these holes. So I know I've got a little bit of overhang in that piece and in this piece, and if I add an inch, it's just enough to keep the piece captured with a little bit of wiggle room. We've got a few of these cut, and I'm using the angle grinder because it's really fast and they don't need to be super precise, but it also leaves a pretty terrible burr on the end of them. So you could use a flap disc to clean that off. I'm gonna use the belt grinder just because it's quick. I can run them all through really quickly, then we can go test fit them. I've got a couple more of these to do, and then all the spindles will be done. And while I'm finishing that up, Anthony's gonna start milling down some rough sawn cherry for the actual railing. Like I mentioned before, this is gonna be painted black. And so the railing that runs along the top and waterfalls on the end is gonna be some really nice cherry. We have an entire bits video about milling lumber, so if you wanna see the details of that, go check that video out. This board that we're milling down right now is really long and it's wider than the joiner bed that we have. So we're actually doing something called skip planing, which we learned about today from Josh behind the camera. Basically, you run it through the planer and then you flip it over. And then you run it through and then you flip it over. And you just keep doing that until eventually you end up with two sides that are parallel to each other. Now you're gonna lose more material that way, but luckily we have plenty of thickness here that we need to get rid of. And it just makes it a lot easier to do this long of a board with a single tool outside, away from all the other stuff. We finally got all this cherry milled down. Anthony did most of this. I just helped him with this big long one because it's too much for a single person to kind of keep flat. But we finally got those down to almost the final dimensions. We're going to end up cutting them and sanding them and all that stuff. But first, we have to go ahead and start painting the other pieces. But I also have to drill some holes in these posts so that we can mount them on these. This is a cool little connection kit that he found for driving this part, this lag, down into the floor. So you have a nice sturdy pin to then drop your post onto. The instructions are on it. It's pretty obvious. You just drill a hole, drive it over, and then you use an internal nut inside the post to tighten it down. It even comes with a plug, so you can plug up the hole that you have to drill for the nut. It's a pretty cool thing you can find at your big box store. So we're going to use these, but I have to drill some holes in the bottom of these oak posts before we can paint them. This video is sponsored by I Like to Make Stuff. We do a lot of different things here at I Like to Make Stuff. These videos are about inspiring you to make the things that you want to have. But if you go to shop.iliketomakestuff.com, we've got a bunch of other things as well. We've got digital plans for a lot of the projects to help you get started. We've got notebooks so you can keep track of ideas and progress. We've got t-shirts so you can tell other people that you like to make stuff. We've got a bunch of different things over there, and we would love it if you would go check it out at shop.iliketomakestuff.com. We got the railing moved into place, which was very, very heavy, but that means it's going to be very sturdy. So now we need to mount it to the floor. Now, I showed you this thing earlier. We're going to use this to actually put underneath all of these posts. And this is made to go over a finished floor. So if you have hardwood flooring, you can put this right into it and put the post right on top of it. But the floor that they have in this house is floating. And so you're not supposed to fix something through that floor. So in this case, we're going to be cutting it out. They've already started doing that a little bit here. While we've got it in place, we want to trace the outside of all the posts and the center line for the posts so that when we take it out, we can trim out the floor and we know where the center point is so that we can drill the hole for these. We've got this thing dropped over the bolts that we put in, and so we have this little plastic washer that goes down, matches the curve of the hole that we drilled, and then you just put this nut on top, tighten it down, and then you can plug the hole. We have to attach the end pieces a little bit differently. Anthony drilled a hole at an angle on the top of this post and drove it into the 2x4s that are in this corner, then one through the bottom. And for those screws, he used these structural screws. These things are super heavy duty. You can build pretty much anything with these, so they are plenty strong enough to mount this thing to the wall. Now on the other end, it's going to be kind of floating, and it's also going to be wrapped in a cherry handrail that water falls down to the floor. So it's a little bit different, but basically we're going to do the same thing, drive in some screws at an angle into the floor through the oak, and that will secure that end. This thing is all complete and it looks fantastic. You did an awesome job on the design, and I think both of us worked together, did an awesome job on the execution.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks for all your hard work drilling those holes. I know that was really tedious, but I'm seriously so excited to see this thing in our house. It's safe, it's strong, it's beautiful, and my favorite part was seeing the Fusion model on my computer materialize right in front of my eyes.
This is a great example of using Fusion in your home to work around an existing thing. Make something that fits perfectly. And if you want to learn how to use Fusion 360 for projects like this or anything else, you can go to fusion360formakers.com. We've got tons of other types of projects that you may want to check out, and if you're not subscribed, be sure to do that as well. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Wow, I'm very tall compared to you. Do you need an apple box?
No.
Oh no!
There.
So we're gonna make it look safe, and we're gonna make it look pretty.
Not look safe. We're gonna make it safe.